confirmed everyone here is a professional potter. Let's discuss how design works. So we want to understand a couple things, how design works. We want to discuss design because it's the fundamental language of what drives our clay business. I'm probably always going to be looking back there, but yet the visual's right here. So you can't teach an old horse new tricks. So visually and verbally, we're presenting a medium. Like we said, it's 100% tactile and visual. But we need to discuss this because design is the fundamental language of how we present our medium. We think sometimes that the pottery is the main thing. It is, but there's something bigger than that when we have to present it. Then we need to discuss branding, as branding is the sole dialect that we use as a business. So if design is the language, branding is the dialect, and how brands grow is equivalent to like going to a primary spoken language. So if you grew up going to English class, it's like English class, or your respective primary language class. So we know we live in a branded world. Just this morning I woke up, brushed my teeth, did all my morning routine. Before I got in the car, there were over 350 touches in the first hour of my day alone. Some of those are a result of the Airbnb I stayed in, while others were clothing and products I chose to tag along. But honestly, branding is not new. We should not be surprised by this. In fact, branding is one of the primary ways we've been able to identify pottery over the past several centuries, from the Ming Dynasty to Queensware to Wedgwood to Bungalow Potter, which is me. Potters know that they have to distinguish themselves from the competition, if at least not with their product, for sure their potter's mark. That's right, potter's mark are some of the most intuitive, tactile, distinct forms of branding ever, and it continues today. But this isn't enough. Your signature, the bottom of your wares, is probably beautiful. It's your signature, it's your emblem, it's something you love, but it's not power enough to get the job done. We need some other tools. It needs to work in tandem with the environment of your business goals, design, and ultimately brand strategy. So let's look at some quotes. Here's some quotes on design. My iPad says to read the quotes. Everything is designed, but not designed well. We all know this. We've experienced it. Good design goes to heaven. Bad design is everywhere. So true. We take this for granted because the beautiful nature of design so much is everywhere. We become accustomed to it. And then when something is awkwardly in the way, we notice it. And I know I've seen at least one or two poorly designed things in my life. Next, design is creativity with strategy. We know that form and function work well together. We can't reinvent the teapot. We can make them beautiful, change their shape and size, but it still needs to function to hold water, have a handle to pour, and keep us safe from the hot vessel. So even the simplest things are designed to function with a purpose. Design is not just how it looks and feels, it's how it works. Yes, we know that. And lastly, by Paul Rand, design is so simple, that's why it's complicated. That's why I'm here and I want to share this with you. So let's first talk about how design works. Let's look at a few things. So the first principle we need to understand is called the sequence of cognition. This is going to get a little brainy, but it's a 30,000-foot view. Hang on with me. I know it may be drinking out of the fire hose, but we're going to go someplace and you're going to walk away with some tools. So whether it's pots, websites, banners, tents, or merchandising, we always have the sequence of cognition. First, the first thing we see is shapes. This is the fundamental form of what we see. It relates to how when I throw, the shape I want to make, and then I fill in the details later, but it's always the shape first. In design, we see the brand mark's shape first. Next, we see color. Color is the second intuitive functional aspect of how things work. It's what connects the emotional context, the clues, the cultural, contextual ideas. Whether it's a product segment or pet food or fast food or coffee, there's cultural and culturally connections, contextual connections based on our origins and also the culture at large. So then we next see color. Lastly, content is finally where we put two and two together. It's where we get the confirming information our mind thinks. We then verify, yes, Texaco, Samsung, Bungalow Potter. It's processing the red shapes on the for sale sign or the name of the information. It's the shape, the color, then the content, and then it confirms us what we see. So ultimately, our takeaway And the little stars are the takeaway. The takeaway is that we must explore that our intended language, our color related to our values, and our content, which tie the two together, have context. Next thing we're going to talk about is a little psychology. We're going to talk about Gestalt principles. It's the concept that wholeness and interpretation affect meaning, and meaning is really important. So the first one is proximity, and it says it's the assumed connection of when things are together, they belong, despite the fact that they're separated. With similarity, we assume that things are grouped together because they are together. This is a great merchandising tool as well. Continuance suggests that movement is part of the form and continues, knowing the shape is emphasized. And since we're human, we love to have a sense of closure in more ways than one. But with this regards, it's that when we see shapes, we want them to connect, and that there's a lot of assumptions of negative space. And I know a lot of great potters who use negative space to create great forms. Lastly, we understand that when things are in front of each other or behind each other, they give us a sense of distance, 3D. So we've got some principles about wholeness, how we interpret things. And our takeaway as professional potters in this little mini nugget of information is that we must create design that conceptually connects and communicates intent, purpose, and strategy. If not always with our wares, for sure as we present ourselves as professional potters on our print, web, online, social media. Lastly, we need to drive our concept of semiotics. This is the use of signs. It's the sole basis we have for literary theory, anthropology, and these other disciplines. We know some of these things already. There's icons, symbols, and index. We know, like with that little tree, it physically represents a little tree. A symbol there's a learned significance. We know now that this is Wi-Fi. 25 years ago, we wouldn't have known this at all. Lastly, there's an index. This is a signifier that can't exist without the presence of the signified. We understand that this is temperature. I mention this because as we create our brands, our iconography must be distinct. It can't just be our signatures on the bottom. Our intention, they must be distinct and correspond directly to our business concept, our brand promise, the thing that we always promise to deliver. So if you promise to deliver cool sci-fi metallic monster sculptures, your brand, your presentation of your brand needs to correlate to that concept. Or functional Victorian robot teapots. You need to be able to conceptually connect that. So I say all these things. We talk about the sequence of cognition. We talk about Gestalt. We talk about semiotics. Why? Because the big thing at the end of the day is driving this all is meaning. So designing with meaning is the expression of strategy which is meant to accomplish business goals. I need to stop my little iPod. I need to read that again. Designing with meaning is the expression of strategy. And strategy is often where all of us, we want to go get that book. We want to go get the New York Times bestseller list. There's going to be a potter. He's got this book on how to be successful online. We all buy it, and then we may read it. And it may work a little bit, but it's not geared towards us. We have to do the hard work. So designing with meaning is the expression of strategy to accomplish your goals. Designing meaningful experience is reinforced by the need to deliver interactions that people expect and enjoy using. Next, experience drives the content for decision making. So if we need to understand what experiences do, they drive the decision-making process. So if we haven't thought of these things at all as a potter, we can't be surprised when people don't buy our pottery. We've just shot ourselves in the foot. Lastly, designing experiences is one of the key components on how brands work. So our takeaway is that designing for meaning is that we need to design with these experiences in mind. So as potters, sculptors, ceramicists, everyone else in our big clay family, we know about experiences when it comes to our pottery. But when it comes to brick and mortar, online, tent and events, we must follow the level of design experiences the world around us uses and sees. So I hope that sinks in. It's not that your pottery isn't good enough. It's simply that you need to be able to deliver it in the context that is up to speed with everyone else. So we want to get up to speed. And remember how we said branding is the sole dialect of the language we use as a business? It's not our product, not our services, not our medium, not our Portland handcrafted in small batches-ness. It's not our cool persona. It's not your dreadlocks. It's not your funky glasses. Fill in the blank. Design is the sole language. So let's talk about this real fast. So how brands work. First, when people are out and about, people use brands as a way to quickly identify and navigate all the choices that they have. And there's a principle I'm going to get to called NAG, notice, attract, and get. First, we need to navigate all the choices, be reassured we've made the right choice, and then create a portal. Pretend you are a magic person. Say, I'm a magic person. Why? Because you create a portal to an experience. With your pottery, let's continue that and do it online, in person, at tents. This is how brands work for customers. But now that's the customer view. Let's look at the business view. If you're a business, the first thing you want people to understand is perception. You need to address their perception, how they see you, what's the concept they get. You want to ultimately influence their behavior. What is their behavior? To buy. I want that cool little nifty robot teapot. I want that sci-fi metallic monster. Okay? And then lastly, if we address perception, we influence behavior, ultimately we're going to grow, we're going to be successful. And this is how we balance that art and commerce tension. So let's talk a little bit. So say I'm at the market. We're going to talk about this in the customer perspective. I'm at the market navigating all the stores. I wander around and I see some wares that are really beautiful at this place. I go inside and the wares are beautiful. The store experience is conceptually on par. Good design is invisible. I don't even realize they're selling me in the store. And the products are beautiful too. I engage online on the gram of the Insta afterwards and enjoy their packaging. But as a business, I'm going to think a little differently. There's a beautiful Bungalow Potter store. That's a mock-up. So at our beautiful Bungalow Pottery store, it's this craftsman pottery store. Our goal is to influence behavior, address perception, influence behavior. Awesome, they bought. And then ultimately, I'm going to grow, and that actually is some of my wares there. So all this talk of business, goals, perception, this leads us to this. Design strategy. Our takeaway is that our business goals, as they change, so must our design. And that leads me to beg the question, how many of us have sat down and thought, what are my business goals this year? How many of us have thought, I want to do 5 festivals, 1 in each major geographic location, or this spring I'm going to launch a new set of botanical platters, each with their own spring glazes. We need to have goals, or else design doesn't work. So this is how creating experiences work. The design experiences at a store versus online versus mobile are not the same. They can, in some instances, they can drive people to each other. So say I'm at this beautiful stock image art festival. I'm not at that art festival because it's a stock image, but say you're there because you're a CEO of a professional pottery company. You're there at this great show. They may go to the studio or the online. It can drive them there. Or it could drive them to the mobile or online. It may drive people to your gallery. Go back. But they can drive each other to one another, but they're not each other. So knowing what your vision are helps you know what actions you have to take. Those actions will have to have an expression, say it at a fair, an event, or your wares, and ultimately you're going to have to create an experience behind them. So you have to have a vision of what you want to accomplish. You're going to take out an action. You're going to decide, I'm going to go to this fair, this event. You're going to create those wares. You're going to do some glaze testings, launch these new glazes. And ultimately, you're going to express this in what? In experience. So our takeaway here is, I'm going to reiterate this again. It's not that our pottery is bad. Remember, you're a professional pottery of CEO company, of this professional pottery organization. You have the most beautiful wares on the planet, but we can't expect your products to drive the total experience. They're simply just a spoke in the wheel of the whole thing. So let's look at this again. We do an art festival at Stock Picture Art Festival. That's the name of it. Just made it up. It's fantastic, 55,000 people. Some of the design can physically correlate to some of the other experiences, like a brick and mortar gallery store. So you can have some of those same experiences and some of those designed experiences, but they get lost the second I go online or mobile. All the beautiful stuff that I did in my tent, my merchandising, is gone. So when we design our experiences, we have to communicate our brand efficiently. We always have to do what? Design for the consumer, design for the context, and design for the brand. I'm going to pause for a moment. Design for the consumer. We all have beautiful wares and things that we want to explore. Our worth is not caught up in the wares that we make. We are a potter, so therefore we create. If someone doesn't buy your pots, you need to possibly pause and say, am I doing everything best to design for the customer? Or am I designing simply for art's sake, an expression of myself? If you are designing for art's sake, an expression of yourself, you are a potter. If you design for customers in mind, you are a potter. Your worth does not change. However, as a business, it may affect your strategy of how you grow. If nobody's buying your expressions because they are so individualistic, they don't balance the line of art and commerce. Does that make sense? I hope you hear that. I hope no one here, because I've been there. I've been so discouraged when someone comes to my booth and they pick it up and they walk away. But then when someone comes by and they see something and they're like, oh my gosh, I love this glaze, it's beautiful, my heart leaps. And I know that in some way I've designed for the customer in mind. I designed for the context. I designed for the context of where they're buying it. Are they buying this at an art festival that specifically, I know it's a juried competition, there are art buyers coming, or is it simply just a music festival? That's a big deal. That simply changes your business goals. If you're going to a music festival, how do you know that there's going to be people there that are going to buy your stuff? So you need to design for the context. Also, this brings up another thing. I saw some mugs. How many clay buddies do we have in here? I want to hear you, clay buddies. Awesome. So this came up on a Clay Buddies conversation. They said, look at these mugs, they're awesome. And it had Grateful Dead on it. And I said, oh, no, because I work in brand strategy. And that's called intellectual property. And unless that potter had that explicit permission to do that, she or he cannot sell that. So we need to also design for context that is ours, not someone else's. So that's usually why you see a little R next to it. If it's R, that stands for run away. Don't try to sell it. No, it stands for registered trademark, even if there's a TM on something. And when in doubt, always ask. Lastly, our takeaway here is that for the stage, we need to design for the stage of the experience, no matter what it is. I'm going to bop forward again real quick. So we need to consider the consumer's characteristics, their experiences, while connecting them with a thing I'm going to call brand memory structures. We're going to visit that in a second. The brand visuals that are centric for our brands and our brand goals. So this leads us to how brands grow. This is the really exciting stuff. So there's a book out there called How Brands Grow. It's a very hefty read. And unless you love scientific jargon and marketing and science, don't read it. I'm going to boil it down for here. This is how brands work. Brands are not driven by this, I have this emotional connection with Prada. Or I just love Nike. It just tells me to do it. No. People buy based on two factors, mental availability and physical availability. What kinds of availability? Mental availability and physical availability. I'm not going to have you repeat that because it's very hefty to say. But mental and physical availability, that's how people buy. If I don't notice it on the shelf, online, in the store, in the tent, at the event, if I don't notice it, I don't buy it. So I'm going to say something. Unseen is unsold. Will you repeat this with me? Unseen is unsold. That's probably one of the most powerful concepts you can walk away from here with. And because I love science and I love branding and I love semiotics and Gestalt principles and the sequence of cognition, with all this in mind, this is how we understand things. So we've talked about customer, navigate, and reassure, engage. We've talked about business, perception, behavior, growth, but it all happens in a context of what? How brands grow. So there's a couple things I want to share with you. So there's a couple laws of how things function. First, continually reach all buyers of the category. Never be silent. Second, ensure the brand is easy to buy. Third one, nag. Get noticed. Unseen is unsold. Let's catch up. There we go. Refresh and build memory structures. We'll talk about that. Create and use distinctive brand assets. Be consistent and stay competitive. So when we talk about continually reaching all buyers of the category, I'm not meaning be everywhere for everyone, be everything for everyone. No. That's the last thing I want you to do. I don't want you to run out here and feel like you have to do a whole bunch of stuff. But what I want to talk about is how actually people buy. For example, Coca-Cola. If you like Coca-Cola, did you know that 72% of all people who buy Coca-Cola also buy Pepsi? Coca-Cola does not have the market cornered. In fact, we have people that overlap. They also buy other stuff. It is kind of silly for us to expect people to only buy pottery from us. So people don't buy just pottery from you. That's okay. That's okay. Because why? There's lots of people out there. Okay? So we want to always consistently be out there. And that goes back to the principle, unseen is unsold. If you don't see it, it doesn't get bought on the shelf. The brand needs to be easy to buy. So the one thing I want to know is that not everyone is going to like my stuff, your stuff, our stuff. That's okay too. I want you to be okay with this, feeling comfortable knowing that you are not everyone's gentleman or lady suitor when it comes to pottery. Everyone is not worthy of your time and wares, but that does not mean your worthiness is affected by that. They don't have to buy it for you to have worth. However, you also need to know that we just mentioned your brand isn't, it's not being bought by one set of people. So unless you're the U.S. Census Bureau, there's no such thing as demographics. That's scientific truth from the book, How Brands Grow. You need to understand how to sell to everyone. The diversified product strategy of people who love to buy the $80 casseroles, but then the little $5 tea bag holders. So we usually think about the 80-20 principle that 80% of our sales comes from 20% of people. Actually, that's not true. It's more about 35%, not 80. So that's why you have to make things that are quick sells, things that match, things that coordinate, and create multiple entry points. Conceptually, people need to understand what it is. They need to notice it. They need to be attracted to it. They need to get it. So if you haven't written that down, the one thing I want you to write down is notice, attract, get. So that goes back to people only make purchases based on physical and mental availability. So distinctive brand assets, those are the things that are distinctive to you. Obviously, you've seen by now, I do craftsman-inspired pottery. I have a distinct set of fonts that I use and a distinct brand mark. You usually see them in an association with each other, and there's a distinct style that I create. Also, be consistent. Be consistent. I want to hold on one second. I feel like I missed one. Yes. I want to talk about this one. We're going to go back. Refresh and build memory structures. So refreshing and building memory structures is this idea that Coca-Cola, that Pepsi, people in the cola world, they share this concept of the story of refreshment, of being unique, generation next, this is you, happiness in a bottle. They share that story. People in coffee land share this common story, this common narrative of hand-picked beans or bean to cup or sitting back, the third place. You as a potter use the concepts of handcraftedness, coming from the earth, attention to detail. Use some of those common stories, tap into them. Everyone's worrying about being different. Stop trying to be different. We're killing ourselves trying to be so different with our pottery and how we present ourselves. We forget that there are other potters out there, and they all have that same story as well. When I work with branding clients, this happens all the time. People say, like, hi, I'm a chiropractic firm. And they're like, but we're different. We're a family business. I've never heard of a family. What is this? What are they? No, I know what a family business is. That doesn't make you different. That's something that we have in common. That's something I seek out. So when I refresh and build memory structures, here you see Bungalow Potter tapping into some of the craftsmanness. I make functional wares, dinnerware, bakeware, serveware, and tile. So I'm tapping into home-cooked craftsman concepts, and I refresh them. I continually build on them. We've talked about this. Use those assets. Build them. Be consistent. Apply them consistently. If I go from craftsman-inspired pottery to sci-fi robot teapots, I'm not being consistent unless I create a way to showcase that that is part of my brand. And lastly, you need to be competitive. I'm also a design educator, and I tell my students that I'd rather have a C paper on time than an A paper that's late, because I'm going to give you a 0. So the same is true. You can have A-grade wares, but if no one's buying it, we need to simply ask, what is the marketplace for this item? If we're sitting on the fence between art and commerce every day, and you want to create a successful pottery business, you have to listen, you have to watch, you have to compare, you have to listen to trends. You don't have to use them, but you need to know what they are. You better know what they are. You need to know how big a souffle is. It's 7.5 by 3.5, or else that's not a souffle. You need to know how stuff works in your category. You need to know how much Williams-Sonoma or West Elm is making a similar item, or someone else is making those robot teapots. You need to understand what the market is on Etsy for that item. You have to compete. We can't expect people to just show up and buy all of our stuff. We not only have to make it, we've got to lug it to them. We have to create a way for them to notice it, get attracted to it, get it. Oh, and it needs to be competitive? Yeah. So that's the 30,000-foot view of how brands grow. And I share those things with you because I want you to be successful. If you didn't notice, I'm going to call this out. I have a booth. It's booth 217. I pitched this concept for this talk about a year ago. And since then, a handcrafted branding came about. Why? Because people were coming to me and say, Staeven, I need help. And there's this overwhelming need of feeling like I need to do everything. And you may be very capable. You may be a web designer, but are you doing what you love? Are you using all your bandwidth on the stuff that you love? Or are you spending on things that are distracting you from what you love? So I really hope I've engaged you and primed the pump in talking about these topics and giving you something to discuss. So I have a couple encouragements before we transition to what Paul's going to share. And even more so after NCECA, I want you to walk away with these things. So the first one is do what you love. I can't stress this enough. Follow your passions. Wake up every day and repeat to yourself what your vision is. I rescue kitties out of dumpsters. I get huskies from puppy mills. I do Airbnb. I do design for my home. And then at night I stay up and I throw pots because that's how I stay sane. And I had to fight for 9 years to get to that point. And whatever your story is, you can do it too. But follow it. Wake up every day. This is a good one. Always do your best. And know that your best is going to change from day to day, and that's okay. There's no reason you need to think that the goal is to stay at par with yesterday. Like yesterday was a super productive day, and then, I'm not productive. Your worth and talent as a potter didn't change because you didn't make 400 mugs like you wanted to. Your best changes, and that's okay. Lastly, know your bandwidth. You may be the most talented potter in the room, and you may know it. You may not be. But both of those scenarios have the same dilemma. You can't be a full-time potter, a designer, a tax person, run a gallery, do art festivals, a mom, dad, dog sitter, dog walker. Fill in the list of litany of stuff. You have to decide what your bandwidth is. Invite people into your world that can help you do what you love so that you can spend more time doing what you love and delegating tasks out for things that exhaust you. There's a principle of a book recently it came out, and it's about decluttering. And the principle was, if it does not bring you joy, get rid of it. Love it. So I have 92 cats now. So thank you so much for your time. I want to pass this over to Paul. I want you to thank you so much. So after this, we're going to have a question and answer time. And so without further ado, Paul Blais. Let's give it up for Paul.
Well, thank you. I'm really grateful that you all have decided to come and hang out here with us this afternoon. And I wanted to just also thank you. For some of you are podcast listeners. Brian Jones, who introduced us, he started up again the Brian R. Jones Cast, or the Jones Cast, something you guys listen to. There's also Ben Carter with Tales of the Ray Clay Rambler. The guy's a rock star, love him. And then the Potter's Cast. And I wanted to just thank you guys for what you have done for the Potter's Cast. Yesterday morning, I looked at my stats, because, like we like to look at our numbers. And I was looking at my numbers, and I saw that we had, in the last 30 days from yesterday, had like 95,000 downloads in there. And then I looked this morning, and we'd got over 96,000. And that's not like one of those fish stories where, like, tomorrow I'm going to tell you, and then there's 7 billion. I'm not going to do that to you. It's just amazing that you guys have turned the Potter's Cast into what it has become. And I just wanted to say thank you with all of my heart. And welcome to Portland. I live across the river, and people say, yeah, you live in Portland. Like when I go down to, I didn't grow up here. I grew up in San Diego. San Diego is completely different than Portland. When I told my friends I was thinking of moving to San Diego, this is back in October of '92, they said, did you know that it rains there? And I was like, yeah, that's what I've heard. And so we're known for rain. We're known for rain, and so we always check the weather report. And I've checked the weather report today, and it said that it will stop raining come September. So when we moved up here in October of '92, the day we rode into town, it was dumping like crazy, and it hasn't stopped. We just live with rain, it's just like that. In San Diego, when I would go out, I was just a surfer, a surfer dude. I would go surf with my buddies, and when the weather got cold, what we would do is, and I'd say when the weather got cold, like down to 72, we got our hoodies on, put the hoodie up, long pants, sweatpants, Ugg boots, because it was cold. It was cold, and we moved up here, and I started to see what the locals did. I would drive around town, and I would see people, mostly teenagers, and the teenagers would be in there. It's like in the wintertime, the average temperature is like in the 40s, right? 40s, lower 50s, and they'd be in their shorts and their flip-flops, and I'd be like, that's crazy. And then the locals, all the cool kids, first thing I did is I bought an umbrella. So I had to have an umbrella for up here, but I discovered that all the cool kids, none of the cool kids were doing umbrellas. So there's a few doctors, lawyers, business people with their suits on, but I'm talking about the cool kids. None, like the hipsters, you don't see them walking around with umbrellas, and so we just all look wet most of the time. But I got rid of my umbrella. If I wanted to fit into this new climate that wasn't San Diego, but now was Portland, Oregon. I live in Vancouver, Washington, but they still call that Portland. Now, if we move, if we live there, then this new climate I had to adjust to required that I kind of got rid of the umbrella if I wanted to fit in, because you want to fit in, especially back in the 90s. You wanted to fit in because they hated Californians because we were moving up like crazy, and as we moved up, we had sold our houses down there. Of course, I was a renter down there, but we come up here with all this money, and we buy these, we just outbid everybody. And so the locals hated us. They'd have bumper stickers that said, "Welcome to Oregon, now go home." So we wanted to fit in as quickly as possible. See, they loved us as tourists, but they hated us as immigrants. They didn't like that. So we wanted to fit in as quickly as possible. So we got rid of the umbrellas, and we started wearing shorts when it was raining, and we got rid of the Ugg boots, and we just started hanging out because it was a new climate. It's kind of like that with us in the business world, is that we have come into a new climate that is completely different than the way that the world used to function. And I could keep complaining about being a surfer in Oregon and about how cold it was, or I could adjust to it. And if we adjust to it, we can be able to do some things that are absolutely amazing. And so one of the things that we want to talk about with, oh wait, we're hitting the wrong button, sorry. I had my finger on the wrong button. What we want to talk about is using the tools that are the resources today to be able to grow our businesses. We have been given some of the most amazing thing in the history of the world to be able to grow our businesses. The internet. It's absolutely amazing. There are specifically, because we just did a count, there are over 3,000,000,001 people on the internet right now. Unbelievable how many people are. There's 7 billion people, over 7 billion people on the planet, and half of them are on the internet now. It's absolutely crazy. And of that, there's this subcategory of the internet called social media. And social media, which is all in the mobile phones, where we're out texting, you see people always looking down at their phones, and I see a couple of you are not even paying attention. You're looking at your phones. I get it. I see you. I'm watching you.
They're taking notes, Paul.
But there are over 2,000,000,001 people on the internet or on social media. It is an absolutely amazing thing that we can be able to reach all of those people. One of the things that I like to say is that if you want to be able to grow your business, one of the things you've got to figure out is how to get to where the people are. One of the things that I was thinking when I was younger, my brother-in-law and I, Doug Rovianic, we were trying to think about starting up an ice cream store. We wanted to have an ice cream business, and so we were talking about it. And the thing that we always had for our mantra was, well, the key to an ice cream store is location, location, location. 3 simple things. If you can nail down that, then you can nail it down. Well, one of the great things about being a user of the tools of today is that you can start to get yourself in the right locations all the time. Has nothing to do, thanks bro, it has nothing to do with your geography. And some of you function this way. If you want to grow your business, you got to go to more fairs, right? And so how can you get to the fairs? You drive to it, so it's all geographical in nature. But if you go online, you invest the same amount of time that you put into going to a fair, you could put into going to various, or going to working the internet. Put that same amount of time in, you can reach way more people. So we're not really locked in anymore to who lives next door or down the street, the geography of it all. We have reached a completely different place. And the great thing about using today's resources is that, I'm going to give you a couple of things of why it's so amazing. It's because by using social media and using today's resources, you're able to find the exact perfect audience for your work. I love that Staeven said something while he was presenting was that all of your work is not going to appeal to all of the people out there, right? And that's the struggle for us, right? It's like for us to be able to say, well, how do we get my work discovered? How do I find those people that will love my work? Well, this is the beautiful thing about social media. It starts to open up doors for you to be able to go in and find the perfect audience for your perfect mug that fits them perfectly, okay? But also, the other thing is not only does all of these resources that we have that are so amazing, not only do they help you find your perfect audience, but your perfect audience is given an opportunity to find you also. It totally helps them find you. When I was younger, my friends and I, we used to go to the well, down there was the mall in North San Diego County, North County. I can't remember what the name of it was. I moved away in too, right? So I don't remember everything from San Diego, but there was North County Mall, and we used to go hang out there. And if we wanted to be able to get the cool jeans, you had to go to the mall. If you wanted to be able to find the cool stuff, you had to go to the mall. If you wanted to find all the cute girls, well, they were at the mall. So the way that we would find our stuff was back then you had to go to that spot. And that's why Levi's it was Miller's Outpost. Miller's Outpost is where I always bought my jeans. When I was in junior high, it was blue cords, light blue cords, and only light blue cords, because I didn't think that anyone would recognize me if I changed the color of my cords. So I always wore light blue cords. And but I'd have to go to Miller's Outpost to be able to get them, and it was at the mall. Well, now we don't have to go to Miller's Outpost. We don't have to go to the mall to find them. We can just go online, right? And they start to be able to find us and build our stuff. And I want to tell you about what's so beautiful about what happens here. When you're online and you're working the system correctly, you're able to start doing something that is absolutely stunning. You start building relationships with people. One of the things that is so cool about NCECA, when you show up here, you don't know the potters, you know the pots, right? And so people will open up their Instagram account and they'll see your name and they go, oh, you're that person. And they get all excited because they knew your pots before and now they know the person. And so the thing that is great about social media is they get to know you. If you use social media, the tools that we have available to us right now, it gives us an opportunity to be known. And this is one of the greatest secrets about doing business is that people like to buy from who they know. But not only does it help them to get them to know you and you to get to know them, but also it helps to open up this thing called trust. People like to buy from people that they know, not trust, but also people that they like. So there's the one thing where they get to know you, but also they start to like what you do. And if you can do the interactions correctly, you can kind of work the system, people start to like you. And the third thing that happens is they start to trust you. You know, as long as they've been hanging out with you on the social media, they're doing things around you, they're starting to realize that they not only know, they not only like, but they also start to trust you. When you can get those three things lined up with people out there that you're trying to reach, remember the perfect audience that you have found and that has found you, if you can get those to line up correctly, then you can start doing business with them. See, and that's kind of the goal that you guys, you gals, you people are here to figure out, because otherwise you wouldn't be you'd be next door with the Periscope people, which I wanted to go to. I almost canceled so I could go sit with them. So thank you. And that means that we all care about making money. We all care about building a business. I mean, yes, we love clay, we love pottery, we love making pots, and later on you're going to see a picture of just a little sliver of one of my pots, and I'm so excited to show you because I want you to see my pots. So we all like that, right? And we like making, right? But we also want to not only make pots, we want to make money, right? If we can make some money, then we don't have to make it for the other man, you know? We can do it for ourselves, and so we want to not just go after our passions, we also want our passions to come after us, and then we get these great certificates of appreciation called dollar bills. And if you can get those coming to you, enough of those certificates of appreciation for yourself, then you can start to say, I can cut back on my job. Unless you're Kevin Kowalski, who wants to never quit teaching in high school, just keep teaching. So I've talked to him and said, dude, you've got like 101,000 followers. Oh, health insurance, oh yeah. And retirement, those are the things he's looking for. So, but anyhow, we can, if we start to build up those relationships, we can build up those certificates of appreciation, we can start making some cutbacks and maybe put more and more time and dedication to it. So let me tell you, one of the things that we're always trying to figure out is how can we increase traffic to our website, right? One of the things just increased traffic should be actually the other thing. You know, one of the things people ask me all the time is, well, how can we get more people to do this or get more people to do that? Well, let me just suggest that if you're going to do any of that stuff, you've got to have a plan. You have to have a plan for what you're going to do. When we look at, let me just preface as we go into this, I've talked about the amazing thing is that this amazing tool of social media, the amazing tool of the internet, the amazing tool of these resources we have today that opens up the entire planet for our resources. It's kind of like, if you're to try to become an expert on that, it's kind of like you go to Niagara Falls to get a sip of water. It's like it's just going to blast you in the face, drown you, and you feel so overwhelmed, and you feel like you're going to be just held to the bottom, and it's like, why even do it? It's so overwhelming. And I get that. You know, we talk about experts, you know what an expert is just someone who knows a little bit more than you. You don't have to, so these people that are claiming to be experts, they are. But they're not the people who know everything. Some of them are just people who know just a little bit more than I know, and so I will call that person an expert. Well, let's just say that let's not worry about becoming experts. Let's just worry about coming up with a plan and a strategy, so that it's not just that you have an Instagram account, though that's cool. It's not just that you've got a Pinterest a board that's cool, but that you have a strategy for having those things. If you can have a strategy for it and you start to get a roadmap of how you can use these things to work for your benefit and work towards your growth, then it becomes less of a bummer, and starts to become more useful for you. So the things that I like to talk about consistently is that if you're going to go online, if you're going to engage with the internet, one of the first things you have to do is set up a home base. Now, a home base for me is a website. You can have all the other things that are going on around it. You can have the Facebook, the Twitter, the Snapchat, Instagram, Periscope, all of those things. You can have all those things. That's great. That's great. That's great. I love them. I dink around with all of them. Well, with some of them, most of them. One of them I don't touch. But all of those things I play around with for the most part. But if you just have it, it's not really being useful. The strategy that you want to have for it is that with everything that's out there, you want to have it always directing them back to your website. Always get them back to your website. And let me tell you why. If you build an amazing following on one of these amazing platforms, they are not your followers. And they will change the rules because it's their house. And that's okay. It's their house. I'll get mad at them, but I have no control. So I'll just tell you an experience for me was that with Instagram, I have a very specific thing that I'm doing with Instagram, and I tested it and I strategized on it, and I started to do, and it wasn't my idea. I have what's called an interest account. It's intended specifically to cater to the interest of ceramic artists. That's my intent. And so I don't really post my work. I do a little bit, and I do a little bit more on there, but a lot of it is I'm posting the community's work. And I didn't realize that when I would start to do that the benefit or the side effect is that when I would post other people's work is that it would gain them followers. And I am so thrilled that was one of the things. But the point is that my strategy was to post other people's work. And as I started testing how often I would post, I went from initially I was getting like 10 followers a day. And I know that that's really good. 10 followers a day, that's cool. Like if you get 10 followers a day, you're pretty happy, right? I know that I was. And I said, yes. Then I started to get up to like 25 followers a day. And I was so stoked, 25. And I was yelling to my wife, I got 25 followers today. And she like, nah, great, yeah, put the dishes away. So then I got up to, then I started to get like 50 followers a day, 100 followers a day, 300 a day. I literally got up to 500 followers every single day. Can you imagine how cool that was? I was so stoked. I got 500 followers. And then Instagram didn't like that I was posting as often as I did, which was I had figured out if I posted every 2 hours, that was about right. I would get 500 new followers a day. I would lose about 100, but I would gain 500. So my net net was 500 a day. They turned me off. Literally in one day, I went from 500 to 0. And it all has to do with their algorithm, the way that they would promote my specific interest page. Well, I wrote them, you guys, what are you doing? My account, 500, what happened? And they wrote back nothing. So I kept doing what I did, and it started like from scratch, 25 a day, blah, blah, blah. Got up to 500 a day, they turned it off again. Every time I got to 500 a day, they turned it off. They just it just would turn off, and I would stop getting those followers again. And it had to do with that they were doing something to my Instagram account. They own it. Those followers, if you guys follow me, you aren't really my followers. You are Instagram's. You belong to Instagram, not to me. They can do what they want with their platform. They can shut my account down if they don't like what I'm doing. They turned off the exposure, but they also could just turn off the account entirely. So they own it. So if I lose all of those people, let's say if I have all this work that I put into it on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter or whatever that's on there, if I do something that displeases them, they can turn me off, and I lose all of those relationships, every single one of them, gone. And then the people that really care, they want to find me, they've got to do the extra work and effort to try to figure out, where did Paul go? And so the goal then, if the case is that because that's their property, then why would I keep people there? My goal is always, always, always get people off of Periscope, get them off of Instagram, get them off of Pinterest, and get them onto my website. Because on my website, that is mine. Nobody's going to turn that off. I'm the only one that can control that. That is my house. In my house, I get to control what happens to my rules on my home base. So the goal is always to do that. And that's our strategy, like with your Instagram or any of your stuff that you're working with, is have the strategy of saying, I want to get my followers from there to my home. And let's just talk about your website for a second, okay? Because websites are really, really important. And can I say that even though websites are really important, very significant, there is an amazing percentages of small business owners right now in the world that do not have a website of their own. And you'll be astounded that that's 50% of all small businesses don't have websites. Now, I tried to find a statistic of how many people that were potters or ceramicists, how many of them had their own website. And I couldn't find that stat. So let's do a very unofficial, just as a show of hands. And don't anyone look around, because I don't want to embarrass you. Like if your hands aren't, don't raise your hand just so you can be in with the cool crowd. Don't do that, because there's no cool crowd. I just want to know how many people here have your own website, not a blog spot, but a real website. Okay, you guys make me proud. It looks like it's a little bit less. It looks like about 40% of you look like to me. And I've got an expert eye for percentages. Now, and the reason is that what's amazing about why people who want to run businesses, they don't have a website. I was reading Entrepreneur Magazine, and the reason that they said that they don't have a website is they specifically said that websites weren't relevant to their business. I don't understand that. If your business has customers that are on the internet, the internet may not be relevant to your business, but the customers who are on the internet, they are relevant. And so those people are significant, and they're an important piece of the puzzle. So going back to your website then, let's just talk about two main reasons as to why you would want to have a website, okay? So number one reason, it's a really great way to inform, okay? So it's to inform, and then secondly, it's to transact. Those are two great reasons to have websites. Now, I'm boiling that down. You can do some research. There are whole books written about this subject, but I'm boiling it down to just two basic reasons as a business, okay, of having a website. You can inform, okay? So here's the things that you're informing. You can inform the world what you got, letting them do it. Like Staeven said, if it's not seen, it's not sold. Is that unseen?
Unseen is unsold.
That's what I was trying to say. So perfect. Unseen is unsold. So you're showing the world what you got. You're starting to build relationships. You're saying who you are. It's a great way to let the world know who you are, but also it's a great way to stir up desire. Okay? Those are three things that you can do on the informing part. So the informing, you're trying to let them know what you got, letting them know, build a relationship, and then thirdly, you're starting to stir up a desire. And all the things that he talked about for branding, that comes into the stirring up desire part. The next thing that you're doing is that you're trying to transact. And I'd say that there's two things you want to be doing when you're saying transaction, because transaction is not always passing bucks between hands. Sometimes it is the email list, okay? One of the things you want to do always on a website is have a great way to capture emails. None of us love email marketing, spam. We don't like it. I get it, but it works. There's a reason why LL Bean. There's a reason why Land's End. There's a reason why Williams-Sonoma. There's a reason why all of these big companies that are successful, there's a reason why they're that they're send out emails, is because they make sales, okay? So you should always have a way to capture your emails, because again, all these other sites, you don't have any, you can see the followers on your Instagram and your Pinterest. You can see the followers, but you don't have the relationship. That's where get them on your email list. Build an email list, because that's your real relationship with them, okay? Second thing that you can do then is you can sell your stuff. And I do believe that the transaction of an email is like a sale. You have to give them a reason to want to be able to give you an email address. Like on my website, I've got a very specific purpose for my website. I'm trying to reach potters, right? And one of the things that I try to do to get people to give me their email address is I have the free 7-day Potter's Business Workshop. It's a long title, but it says exactly what it is. It's 7 days, it's free, it's a business workshop, and it's for potters. So it's free, and people can sign up for it. It took me a month to write it, but people get it for free. And how they're paying for it is they pay for it with their email address. And so you could have that. You need to have a reason for people to want you're driving to their website, give them a great reason to be able to give them your email address, and then you can start to sell to them through your email and also through your website. So selling stuff. So the two main purposes I hit the wrong button. Boom, sorry. So the thing is that the vast majority of people that are out dinking around in the evening time, they're on all these great platforms on their phones. And you're always going to be thinking, when you're getting your stuff together, you have a goal. You're always going like this. You got they're on those. You want them to get them to there. Now, I am intentionally using WordPress because I like it better than most of them, because it's so customizable. But you could also put up there Squarespace. You could put up there, well, I don't want to name the others because they're not as good as WordPress. My personal opinion, in the business mastermind that we do for the Potter's Cast, we go around and round on this, and some of them have disagreed with me, and they're all wrong. So that's the thing, right? We're trying to get them to that point. So I want to talk. I'm going to give you the example of just one platform and tell you what I'm talking about. And I want to talk about Instagram, because it's one that I dink around with the most. Okay, it's where I am the most. Having said that, when we talk about the website, the biggest source of traffic for my website is Pinterest. So Pinterest has got, I think, 200 million people on it. I can't remember, but Pinterest is huge. You can put some effort into that and really grow your business through that. You work it correctly. But I'm not going to deal with Pinterest. I'm not going to deal with Twitter. I want to just deal with Instagram, because it's just for the sake of giving you an example of what I'm talking about. So this is my Instagram feed. This was taken a couple weeks ago, so the numbers are off. I now have 70 some more thousand, so because we all care about those numbers, right? Those are vanity metrics. They mean nothing. What matters is how many people you get to your website, okay? So the vanity metrics don't really matter that much, but I want to tell you there's 3 things about your website, and this should be going across the board. there should be at least 3 things that you're doing on all social media to drive them back to your website, okay? Now, one thing that I like to do is I like to make sure that I've got great delight. So down there, yes, that is, I said I'll show you just a piece of my pottery. That is one of my cups. And it's not, it's
cute.
oh, thank you. And that's at a local coffee shop near my house, and so I took a picture of it, I put it on there. But and the reason that I'm just doing mine, I told you mine is like my Instagram really belongs to the community of ceramics in general. But I know I occasionally I post my stuff, but I've just put that because I didn't know who else's I would pick that might be, so I picked mine. Okay, anyhow. But what you want to do is you always want to give something that really grabs someone's attention. When I say great delight, what I'm talking about is that you don't have to be the best photographer in the world, but on this platform, it really matters. On Pinterest, it really matters. On Twitter, it kind of matters. What really matters on Twitter is having great written content, making sure that you've got good links in there, things like that. But in this case, on this particular thing, the thing is you want to give someone the delight of why they would want to stop as they're scrolling through, that you capture someone's attention as they're thumbing through their feed, they stop and go, oh, whoa, let me look at that. And hopefully you get a little heart out of it, right? That's important. But if you could get even better, if they click on the actual account and take it off of the scrolling side, right? You guys, like on the bottom left, they've got the home page. That's where you have everybody on there, right? Okay. So you want them to click and come over to your specific feed. And so once you get them to your specific feed, the important thing is you need to have a great description. So you've got great delight, something that is really capturing people's attention. And that could either be your work specifically. You might be able to every once in a while post someone else's work on your page. Anything that you want to be able to capture, it doesn't matter. Something that stops someone's attention. They look, you'll get the credit too. It doesn't matter. It's okay. But always give credit to that person, but you'll get a little bit of feedback and a little bit of kickback too. But so great delight. Then have a great description. I'm saying specifically what I'm doing. I'm the host of the Potter's Cast. I'm the creator of the free 7-day Potter's Business Workshop. I'm giving people reasons to want to go, oh, that's interesting. I want people to know more about me. People have been very creative in this area. That when I go back, I saw a photographer, and his said, I'm a magician. I freeze time. And I just thought that was such a brilliant thing. I'm waiting to discover the potter that puts in their description, I'm a magician. I turn mud into stone. That you're going to do that, aren't you? Yeah. Okay. So something that just captures it. I am trying to do something very specific here. And with you if you just put, I'm a potter, that's great, but it's not very captivating. You want to be a little bit creative in this area. And if you feel uncomfortable with your writing skills, then be creative on who you get to do it. Find someone else who's a creative writer and just have them write a sentence or two for you and get it nailed down to where you're giving a person a reason to want to do the next thing, is that you've got a great description, you've got great delight, great description, you also want to have a great destination. This is where the gold is. This is the perfect spot. And I want to tell you that if you have that point on your profile empty, you are losing great opportunities here. This is how you drive people back to your website. I totally get it. Some of us are into driving people to your sales page, and that it would be a sales page of like Etsy. I mean, okay, Etsy's okay, but can I tell you something? The people who buy from you from Etsy are not your customers. They are Etsy's customers. In fact, according to their standards, you're not allowed to do any communications with them. You're not supposed to capture their email. You're not supposed to write to them afterwards. There's some tricks. There's a few things you can do that are gray area that may be okay, but the thing is they'll shut you down if you do the wrong thing. So if you send them to Etsy, what you're doing is you're saying, let me help Etsy grow their business. It's really what you're doing. Instead, send them to your website. You can have a link. If they're interested enough to want to buy from you, then they'll come to your website and you can say shop, and you can hit the shop button and have that directly linked then to Etsy. That's okay. Etsy has a plugin you can put onto your website where it'll have they come to your page and they can look at your stuff right there. But if you're sending people to Etsy, you're sending them to someone else's business, and they're going to be distracted, maybe find someone else that they like, and then you'll lose a sale or you'll lose them entirely. So this destination is exceptionally important, and this is what I'm talking about when I say drive people back to your website. And so if you have the strategy of this in mind, of saying, with all of the platforms that are out there, all of the platforms that you're going to use on social media and any marketing, and using those as tools to bring them to your website where you can capture their email, where you can make a relationship with them that's off of those things, that's going to be the way that you start to build a list that you can be able to sell to, okay? Now, we could go on and go do the other things, but again, it's like trying to get a sip out of Niagara Falls, so we won't go any further than that. What we're going to do right now is go into... Oh, I'm hitting the wrong button again. I'm sorry. My finger gets to playing here. What we'd like to do is to open it up for questions. If you have questions for us, there's a microphone right over there. And if you feel brave, you can go stand in front of it and ask Staeven or myself anything you'd like to, and then we'll go through that. I think we've got... Okay, if you're going to ask the question, you have to go to the microphone, but I really appreciate you asking that, and I'm going to wait to hear it through the microphone.
Okay, so we got someone at the microphone right now. Sir, go ahead with your question.
Yes, we do. I'm always being bombarded with offers to get me to the top of the Google list. Frankly, I don't want to be on top of the Google list. I couldn't keep up with the demand, is my thought. What's the best way of getting yourself in terms of people being able to search a keyword and finding you to get them to come to you?
Sure. This is a really great question. Don't ever be tricked into somebody saying they can get you on top. Basically, they're going to essentially get you to buy AdWords, which are basically for the time that you purchase that, it will boost you, but it's like as soon as you stop paying, you'll go down in ranking. So what you want to do is create organic search results. So if you've been online longer, the longer you are online, the more those terms that you have on your website are going to pop up. So your name, what you do, your location, and then Google actually will subset the different pages. So sometimes you'll notice, you'll search for something, it'll say just whoop, Bungalow Potter, but then it'll say Bungalow Potter, services, my story, pottery, tile, and it'll break it down. Why? Because there's an organic search history. WordPress has some great tools you can get from other places like Code Canyon or whatnot, but there's SEO tools. Every page, imagine you're selling platters. That page should have at least 4% of your content should be the word platters. Google came out with this, it was called the Big Panda Update, and everybody was upset. Why can't I just put a link to, it's like back in the day, remember, there would be like, you'd be like shopping for dresses, and then it'd be like fire trucks, race cars. There'd be like something randomly shoved in there. Google finally said, no, actually, you can't just shove backlinks on websites anymore. You actually have to use the content that you're saying it is. So if it's platters, you talk about it 4% of the time. So the best way is to go back to our terms. Be consistent. You're going to want to write copy that says what each page, each product. So if it's about red platters or green platters, maybe you have the different variables in there that you can shop and choose and select, but your content needs to be all about platters. So thank you for that first question. Sir, where did you go? Amanda, thank you for being bold and asking a question. He's going to go ahead and get a free mug. Next person.
Hi, guys. Thanks for being here. My name is Samuel, and I was a webmaster for a short time. That's a really good way to go out of business because now there's great content management systems out there like the ones that you showed us.
Yeah.
I use Weebly, I've used WordPress and a bunch of others. Mm-hmm. My question, though, is I have heard after reading many things on contents and supposed experts about posting that they say, you should be posting daily, or you should be posting every other day, or you should be doing this. And you need to do this with content-rich form.
Sure.
Which is really a great idea, except you spend all your time writing and trying to figure out exactly what that looks like.
Okay,
So
yeah.
how often do you guys post to make this successful?
Okay, let me just say that what I think one could do or should do is that instead of trying to master all of them, I'd say focus on one for a while and really master doing one platform and just become the Jedi of Twitter or the Jedi of Pinterest, so that you're not trying to do all of it. And then maybe in 6 months, after you feel really comfortable with Instagram, really comfortable with it, then you can be able to add the second. I personally, what I do is every time I post on Instagram, I've got a thing that automatically posts onto Pinterest. So, but the how often depends on the platform. Okay, so some platforms, it also talks about. You also want to think about lifespan. Like if you're on Twitter. Twitter has about a 6 to 20 minute lifespan. After that, it's so out of the thing that doesn't even matter anymore. It becomes insignificant. Facebook has a much longer lifespan. It probably has about a 2-day lifespan, maybe. Instagram has a couple of hours. Pinterest has 6 months. So if you're looking for value, bang for your buck, Pinterest is like one of the best platforms for bang for your buck. So how often depends upon which platform you're working with. I would say you could schedule out if you want to grow. If you're doing if I was posting just my work as often as I do, I would be unfollowed as fast as I posted as often. I post about every 2 to 4 hours on Instagram. So, but that's because I'm posting other people's work. And so if it's something where I'm posting my stuff, I try never to post that too often for myself. Maybe once a day, a couple times a day. You can get a scheduler that will help you to remind you when to do it. If you took 30 minutes on a Sunday and just laid out all of your stuff of what you're going to do for that week, and then just put a little timer that would go off on your phone to help you to remember to do it, then you've already got the content all ready to go. You just click it and go, and you put it up, and then you just back onto your stuff. You're not even really on Instagram. You're mostly doing your work. Little reminder, okay, boom, and then you go back to your work. I'm running 3 businesses, and so when I'm running my 3 businesses, I don't have time to be on Instagram, but I'm on Instagram all the time, but just for seconds at a time.
And a quick note about that. A great metaphor for this is flowers. Who has someone that they love that they would love to send flowers to sometime, right? Imagine if you got flowers from them or them from you, and you got flowers, and they'd be like, oh, babe, thanks so much, that's wonderful. And then you get them again next week, and then you get them again next week, and then finally you catch on, and you're like, oh yeah, I just told the florist to just send you flowers every week. The delight is gone. The surprise is gone. So there has to be a natural, organic level of how naturally you're just doing things. I work from about 9 p.m. to 3 in the morning, and the kitties are down there. The dog is sleeping. I take a picture of what I'm working on. Here's Onyx. Here's Jack. Here's Ellie. I show you what's going on in my life, and it's a candid portrait. There are tools like Buffer app, Hootsuite, and they can help you schedule some of your content. And I would suggest using that for things that you know when they're going to happen, like events. Hey, check me out at the Stock Art Festival, like I said. So with events and things that are solid and concrete, deliver your content, a promotion, product launches. Those are the things that automatically, take some time once a week, twice a month to schedule, but don't forget the organic element. You are sharing an inside portrait candid view. And just kind of remember that. Don't just be putting the flowers on, auto purchase from the social media florist.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks for your question. Let's give him a mug.
This is Van Tiki right here. Right there. There he is.
Now I'm even more nervous. Thank you.
Thank you.
So this is a 2-part question, and it speaks to what you were talking about making your things easy to buy for people.
Okay.
So something that I am struggling with, and it's both a psychological and a customer service dilemma, is I sell things in limited editions. So I'll have an edition sale and I sell things. And what'll happen is I'll sell through an edition, and then there'll be 1 or 2 people that can't buy the edition because it's all gone.
Sure.
And so at the end of that day, I will get 1 or 2 emails that will just depress me for the rest of the week because sometimes people can get a little mean. And so I have, as we all wear many hats, I do all the customer service too. So I'll bend over backwards and try to help these people. But I can't it's an addition, it's gone. So my 2-part question is, how do I psychologically not dwell on the one person, out of all the people? And then 2, how much time should I, as a business person, invest in appeasing or dealing with or interacting with these, the squeaky wheels. I don't want the squeaky wheel to get all of my attention, but he's a wheel and he should get attention. So I don't know, that's
Thank you
kind
for
of
your
my
two-part question.
two-part.
First off, I want to release you from the burden that I have also learned to deal with. There's a thing, if you're into faith values or you appreciate internal truths, there's a thing called the 4 agreements. And when people do stuff, this is one of the 4 agreements. When people do stuff, it's about them. It is not about you. So those squeaky wheels giving you crap about your limited edition things, you are a professional potter, and my perspective would be that if you have a website that's, maybe it's WordPress and it's using WooCommerce, you use it to stock that inventory, and there's 5 bowls, and when there's not 5 bowls less, that's done. I do the same thing. I have the anniversary series, and it's a gold luster bowl, and every year there's only 10 of each thing. They're done. And that also brings up the issue of that it's limited edition. If every time someone asks you for a bowl, they got it, there's a metaphor for that, or there's a, it's kind of exhausting the specialness out of that. And say, thank you so much for your inquiry. These are available such and such a time, and I look forward. And then you reuse it as an opportunity. What were you looking for? What was it about them? There's always truth behind what people want when they say things, even if they are mean. It's something in them that they want something. So maybe they're looking for a beautiful platter for an event, or so on and so forth. Use it as an opportunity, acknowledge them, but also have some boundaries with them. Thank you so much for your inquiry. Unfortunately, these bowls are no longer there. And you basically use it as an opportunity to redirect. And if they're not satisfied, you say, thank you so much. Look forward to doing future business with you. Mm-hmm. Thanks for that question.
Thank you. Thanks.
Do we have 5 minutes here?
Awesome.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay.
All right.
Yes.
Can you speak a little bit about the differentiation and connections between developing a brand and using your name? Because I struggle with having a name as a brand without feeling gimmicky versus just saying artwork by blank blank.
Yeah.
Sure. And we're hitting the 5-minute mark. So after we hit that 5-minute mark, if you have more questions, I want to certainly invite you down to talk to Paul and I. As you leave, there's some keychains in the back just because I love you and I want to give some goodies over by the sound booth. But to answer that question specifically, personal branding is certainly a topic that you can get into. Your personal style, your features, your attributes, as well as how they carry over. But we need to understand that Vera Wang wasn't Vera Wang overnight. Just because Vera Wang uses her name as a brand, and that's a lifestyle brand, she's selling a lifestyle. And you need to understand that before Vera Wang was selling Vera Wang, she was selling that lifestyle. So you are selling a lifestyle to people. If that's cool, eclectic pottery with rabbits on it, or if that's very pristine, beautiful, Kristen Seifert, Victorian stuff, she's selling that name, but she's selling the lifestyle behind it.
Right.
And so if you understand conceptually the big idea of what you're selling, and I tease, there's a reason I tease about the monsters and the robots, because we get that. It's distinct. And the idea is that we don't want to be so different. We need to still fit in our category of pottery. You need to be distinct and memorable and on the front of people's minds. So as long as you keep in mind that you're selling a lifestyle, there's always this, that, and the other thing. When I buy a car, it's a car. When I buy a BMW, it's a German car. But the other thing is a sense of luxury. And we need to know what the this, that, and the other thing is about our pottery. When I have a piece of bungalow pottery, and I'm just going to use this because I don't know yours. When I have it, I have a piece of pottery. When I have this, I have a craftsman-inspired pottery. When I have this, I have something eclectic that I buy for X amount, and it's this for a 4-piece setting, and it's desirable and it's attainable, and not everyone else has it. And so it's about the other thing. It's the this, that, and the other thing. It's the lifestyle. And if you keep in mind what you're really selling beyond just the pottery conceptually, that's going to ultimately help you understand how you affect personal branding. And you're more than welcome. Please don't hear me dissuading you from ever using your name on your pottery, but just know that your name alone not going to do the job. It's going to be the whole package that's just one spoke in the wheel. So
I think we have time for one more, it looks like. We have like,
thank you for your question.
So I've been binging on the Potter's Cast the last couple of months. I found it. I've been
Thank
listening
you.
to it. And, you know, you talked about it again today, emails. That's the hardest thing for me. And I don't know what's the best way to use it to reach out. Like, I've been using MailChimp, but I don't know if there's better options or something else that would be a better way for me to capture what I...
yeah, MailChimp is great. It's a great entry-level type email marketing or mail management system. It's a great entry level because it's like free. And then if you spend $10, you can do some automation with it. Then you go up from there. Get Response is amazing. That's what I use. There's also, and yeah, Get Response is what I use specifically, but there's tons of different ones. It's a matter about what you want to spend your money on. What was the second part of your question? Or no, but what was your question again?
Well, just like how to capture, because I...
Okay,
you
how
know,
to
it goes back
capture.
to that
Okay.
mailing everyone, and I don't want to feel like I'm sending
Right.
them
Okay.
crap
There's
mail.
there's two things that you're worried about. There's like one, how do I get them to be able to give me their email address? And secondly, how often do I email them without bugging them? Yeah, I get that. Okay. The reason for someone to give you their email address can be, you can come up with all sorts of creative ways to do it. You can say, you can tell them that they're going to give, it's actually, think of it in terms of a purchase. You're buying their email address and they're buying something from you. It's just that the cash that's being exchanged is information. So come up with a thing, like we're coming up, when you come up into the Christmas season, not to be really conscientious, when you come up to the Christmas season, maybe say, hey, here's the top 10 things to give to your man, or top 10 things to give to your lady, or top 10 things for your children. Change it up, and it'll do it. Okay, I have been told that it's time for us to quit.
And my last comment on that is it's all about content. Give them a reason to sign up, because they'll want to. They need something in exchange.
Yes.
So keep it great content. Hey, thank you so much for joining us today. We loved having you. We loved speaking for you and creating this presentation. Connect with us offline. There's some information up here. Connect with us on our Potters our profiles, NCECA app. Thank you so much. You were a great crowd to have. Thank you.